following her delivery of the Gauteng 2015-2016 budget. Gauteng MEC for Finance, Barbra Creecy, joins us in studio now to take us through some of the major points of the budget. MEC, such a pleasure to have you with us as always. It does seem as though it's a tough year ahead. You've got 500 million rand that has been cut from the budget. How difficult has it been to construct this year's particular budget?
Good afternoon. Yes, as you say, it has been a challenge. You know that Gauteng is affected by a constant process of in-migration. Our population grows by 2% every year. That means there is ongoing pressure on our health and education services, in particular demand for housing, ever more traffic on our roads. So, of course, it means that we have had to find the money to fund quality social and economic services, but also to make Premier Makura's vision of the transformation and modernization and reindustrialization of our province a reality. I think that obviously health and education still get the lion's share of our budget. But this year we did something different in the way in which we allocated money. We have 5 development corridors that have been identified, each one focusing on a particular area of strategic economic activity. We've tried to align our infrastructure spending in particular with those development corridors. So we've put 3 billion into the central corridor, which would be Johannesburg and environments, 2 each into the east and northern corridor, that would be Tshwane and Ekurhuleni, and 1.5 billion into Sedibeng and the western corridor. And this money would be for upgrade of road infrastructure. There would be the Gauteng broadband network, which is bringing connectivity of government buildings throughout the province, and I think really taking us into a new generation of public sector reform. Lots of investment in housing, particularly kickstarting our new megacity projects of Savannah City and Saferfontein, and then investment in community services, including agri-parks, industrial parks and hubs. And we've also put 140 million to kickstart the township enterprises. This is something that Premier Makura is very passionate about. We're also looking at changing government spend. At the moment we're spending about 5% of our 10 billion rand budget on township enterprises. We are researching now to find ways in which we can expand that spend to 30% over the next 4 years.
I want us to zone into the rejuvenation of the city centre in particular. You mentioned infrastructure as well as the Wi-Fi connectivity or mobile broadband connectivity. Is this in response to a call from business? Because we've seen a mass exodus of major companies leaving the city centre there, barring a few major corporates. Are you expecting that following this rejuvenation, some people or major corporates would want to come back to the CBD?
Well, I think our banking sector still has its headquarters in the centre of the city. But, one of the projects that's been on hold for quite a while is the Kopanang precinct, the government precinct. This is a project that we would want to put out to the private sector for consideration. For many years we have had budgetary challenges. We think that we need private-public partnership in order to get this particular development off the ground again. And I think we would also be addressing the city of Johannesburg and saying that if the inner city of Johannesburg is the seat of provincial government, how do they want to come to the party? I think that closing the gap between the provincial and city governments is a major focus of work, because that obviously helps us with development issues if we can agree together on the spatial development and also get pre-approval for particular kinds of development in particular kinds of corridors. I think that's good for business. It gives certainty to the markets, and it's something that we would want to be actively pursuing.
On the township enterprises, are these informal workers or employers who want to do things for themselves and in niche particular sectors? And how difficult is it to strike that balance between driving financial growth in these townships? Meanwhile, from a municipal perspective, revenues targets just aren't being met.
Yeah, I think one of the focuses of my colleague, MEC Maile, is to try and ensure that we bring all of these township nascent enterprises into the regulatory framework. You know, they need to be registered, they need to be, unfortunately, in the tax environment, but also that then gives them opportunities to be on the government supplier database. And I think that in line with the concept of the corridors, we are looking at what kind of incubation could you do where, in terms of allowing these enterprises to develop to the point where they could provide services to government. Let me give you an example. In the city of Tshwane, we know that one of the things we're focusing very successfully on there is the automotive cluster. Now already, many of those companies are working with township panel beaters and motor mechanics. Now what we'd like to be able to do is to say government has a fleet of vehicles. Can we give the servicing of these vehicles to township enterprises that would be dealing with vehicle mechanics? And how could our investment with the automotive sector incubate that kind of project? So I think we're thinking quite creatively. My colleague MEC Mahlangu is also looking at how we could use our spend, for example, on food for hospitals to support the development of small enterprises and co-ops to supply the major hospitals.
I'm sure hospitals must be a significant headache. You did mention that education and health did get a significant chunk of this year's budget, but it almost seems as though there needs to be a complete shift, not only financially, but also mindset-wise when it comes to the level of service delivery in that particular cluster.
Look, I think you know that for the last couple of years, the Department of Health has had an intervention from Provincial Treasury in terms of Section 18 of the Public Finance Management Act. That intervention has really intended to stabilize financial management and human resources management in the Department of Health so that they can improve their frontline service delivery. We are expecting, the Premier set the target of May. We are expecting that we would be able to take health out of that intervention. I think I can say with confidence that the finances are in much better shape than when we took over. We've got accruals down to about 13% in the current financial year. We're expecting that we will be able to eliminate accruals altogether in the next financial year. And that's really important because it allows the department to focus on what they need to do, which is improving the level of service delivery at hospitals. I've already been hearing quite good things about improvements at Charlotte Maxeke. I understand that they received their accreditation as a teaching hospital. That was once under threat because of the frontline service delivery challenges there. So I think this intervention is paying fruit, not just in the back, but also for people who visit that hospital who, you know, that's really what it's about at the end of the day.
Exactly. MEC, I wish we had you on for longer, but unfortunately I'm being told to wrap up the interview. Always a pleasure having you in, and thank you so much for your time.